want to welcome Chris Fabry to our podcast today. For those of you that have been with us before at Nathan Grooms Ministries, we are all about marriage and relationship, and we talk about anything and everything that affects you and your marriage and your relationship. Chris, recently, I felt like I came to know you probably better than I do. Yeah, we both were able to work together. Have worked with Gary Chapman for years.
Right.
So we were able to work together on a radio program that you co-host with Gary, where y'all interviewed me on my book, The Quest for Intimacy. But through all of that, our emails back and forth, I really felt like I began to know you and know your heart. And I appreciate it so very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've worked with Gary. What my job with Gary Chapman is to get out of his way. And let him do what, because he's so busy with his speaking and everything. And so I will kind of prepare for conversations, and you know him and he knows you. So it's like,
Yeah.
it was easy. But there are some guests that we have that he's not as familiar with, and he usually reads the book, if we are featuring a book. But I kind of put a little script together, and then just am there to take the timing. He'll say to me, "Where are we on time, Chris?" It's like, we got 2 minutes in this segment, Gary. So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have to think about that. So I'm kind of the timekeeper for Dr. Chapman.
Well, I think that over the years you've come to admire him as much as I have. And recently when we were together, he seemed to get tickled. I told him, I said, Gary, people ask me all the time about you. And Chris, honestly, like yourself, quite successful in many ways, but walking humbly in the kingdom and wanting to be a blessing. So I told Gary, I said, Gary, I often describe you as a very kind Southern gentleman who loves Jesus with all his heart. And he got tickled over that one. But I've shared that more than once. So, Chris, for our group, people that are watching today, I'll be honest, in preparation, I'm reading again and again your bio. I'm pulling up so many things on YouTube. I have 4 pages right here beside me, and I went over it last night and again this morning. And I thought, I know we've already talked about a particular area that we want to eventually get to today concerning marriage, but please, in your words, tell us about Chris Fabry and your special wife and family.
Well, I grew up on a farm in West Virginia, and I was not the farm kid that I think my dad wanted, because I was writing songs and stories and tiptoeing through the fields and singing and doing all of that, because story has always really been the thing that has captured my heart. And I didn't know what that looked like when I was a kid. And I met my wife. I was going to, because I didn't know, I really wanted to write stories, but it's like, how do you get to that? The closest I could come to was journalism. And so I studied journalism, got a job in radio when I was a teenager, and then worked at a TV station for a year in college, and thought TV news is what I really wanted to do. And I met my wife at an InterVarsity Christian Fellowship group on campus. Now, she's 4 years older than I am, but she was kind of coming in to help out the kids,
Yeah.
And I met her, and things just escalated from there. We had our first date on December 18th, 1981, and we were married on December 18th, 1982. Don't tell Gary now that we did that in a year.
When you know, brother.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I knew before she did. I really knew this is the one for me, and it took her a little longer, which is part of our story.
Yes.
So we were married in 82. Within 6 months, we had moved to Chicago to go to Moody Bible Institute. She has one brother, I have 2. And so things just happened so that we started having these kids. And we had 8 children. Within a few years, we had 8 children, and we were living in a home that was 1,800 square feet. And
Hmm.
something needed to change.
Yes, it did. It
Either
did.
we needed to get rid of some of those children or we needed a bigger house. And we moved to Colorado and had one more. So we have 9 children total,
Hmm.
uh, married since 1982. And the having a quiver full, it's turned out differently than I thought it was going to turn out. I had in my mind, oh, see, here's what's going to look like. So, because we're
Yes.
in Arizona now, and that's part of the story we'll talk about. But it's different than I thought. The marriage has been different than I thought. The journey of the children is different than I thought it was going to
Mm.
be. And what I've learned mostly is be where you are rather than where you thought you wanted to be, because
Yes.
God has done things in me and hopefully through me, but especially in me that I didn't want him to do,
Hmm.
that I want him to accomplish. And a lot of the accomplishment has been through pain and struggle and heartache and conflict and then
Yes.
working that out. So
Yes.
that's kind of a snapshot of our lives.
Okay. In that you are an award-winning author. You've written over 80 books, doing screenplays over these past years for some of the movies that Christians around the world are going to watch. You're writing the books. Um, Actually, this past week, went back and watched another interview that you did with James Dobson. And I was moved, Chris, when he said he loved you like a brother
Yeah.
when y'all began that particular broadcast. Chris, someone has to feel very close to you to say that.
Yeah.
And so when I look at the people uh, that you have been working with for years and years, the entire Left Behind series, writing so many books, children's books, novels. In many ways, you've been quite successful. And radio, I mean, that's another passion, maybe as great as writing. I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a radio guy who writes or a writer who does radio because they're both kind of the same part of my brain that I use. Because when I'm doing having a conversation, not like this one, because you're asking me the question, but when I
Yeah.
get to ask the questions, it's like it's the same thing. I'm writing this in my head as
Yes.
we have the conversation. And you mentioned Dr. Dobson. We moved to Colorado in 2000. They had a shakeup in the co-host, and they needed somebody. And I was just up the road from them, Colorado
Hmm.
Springs. We lived just north of there. And so they said, "Hey, would you come in and sit down with Dr. Dobson?" And and I did. And I had talked with him before, but there's something different about sitting right next to him and doing the
Yes.
broadcast and all of that. And pretty soon I realized that to do the things that you mentioned the Left Behind, Jerry and I wrote, and Dr. LaHaye, but mostly Jerry and I wrote 35 of those kids' books together. And then we did another series of 20 children's books. So 55 books
Hmm.
in a small amount of time. And I realized Dr. Dobson would say, okay, tomorrow we're having this conversation, so you need to be here. That okay, fine. And then that afternoon, he would call and say, we need to repair this program and we got to do it right now. And so I dress to get my shirt and tie on, go down there and sit next to him. But I realized pretty soon if I get on that train, that's going to be the train that I'm on. And
Yes.
if I do this, I got to choose.
Hmm.
And so it was kind of a gift to both of us, to him and me, for me to say, I can't, as much as I wanted to do it,
Yes.
I can't. I can't do it. And so I kind of had to step back from that. And that's what he said to me. I love you like a brother. But at the end of our conversation, when he was saying goodbye to me, he had this, and he wrote everything down on a yellow legal pad, and you couldn't decipher it. I couldn't decipher it.
Right.
And he read this long thing, and I just sat there and gaped at it. It's like he's saying, but it was like he got me. He got my sense of humor. He got my, how much I care about scripture, about how much I care about the family and marriage and all of that. He got it. And
Yes,
my mother, who was still living at the time, my mother wrote in and ordered the cassette of that program, and they sent it, but they didn't send that part of it. They just sent the message or
I
whatever it
see.
was. And she was she was always disappointed because she wanted to keep what Dr. Dobson said as well.
Of
Um,
course, of course.
so
That's a mother's heart.
yeah, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this. In all the years that you're busy,
Hmm.
um, I mean, it doesn't take much research at all to see the intelligence of your wife and her insight. Um, and I'm sure careers could have gone different ways. Did y'all make a choice early on that she would focus on just being a mother? Did she work in the ministry with you or outside the home?
When we were just talking about this yesterday, when we moved to Chicago and I went to school, she got like three jobs to because we had very little money. We had everything we owned in the back of a 1978 Toyota Corolla that we drove to Chicago. And that was one of the best cars. It was her car, probably still running in some junkyard someplace. That engine was great. But she basically put me through, and she was working these three different jobs, and then she got a job with the radio in at Moody. And so I can still remember the phone would ring at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and they would say, "Hey, our engineer's not working or not here. There's a snowstorm or whatever. Can you come over and start the morning show for us?" So she was engineering the morning show, doing the dials.
Wow.
So competent, much better than me. When we auditioned at Moody to be part-time announcers, were both doing it at the same time. They chose her, not me, because she had the better voice. She had not better, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that would be hard to imagine. You've got the radio voice, brother, no doubt.
Well, and then she actually hosted a program called Midday Connection. So in the middle of the day, she would go downtown and she would host this and then come back. And so I would take care of the kids in the morning, and then I would do the evening program.
Okay.
So it was a tag team approach. But when we started to have more and more kids, it was like it was clear to her I don't want to miss this. I don't want to put this on the back burner, even with a part-time job.
Hmm.
So she kind of stepped away from that. And a lot of people have asked her, especially at the time, you had a lot of visibility and you had a platform and all of this. And it was like, it was not hard for her to let go of that because she knew what she was moving toward.
Yes.
She knew the eternal value of pouring yourself into these children. And I, in looking back at that as the provider, because I was very much I had that in my mind.
Hmm.
I was almost to the point of fearful and scared that I wouldn't be able to provide, and so I went overboard and I took projects that I probably should have said no to
Yes.
because it was like, well, this pays, and I got to do this. And so I was on this treadmill, you say 80 books. I was on this treadmill to provide and to do all this. And I think a lot of that was my ego, a
Hmm.
lot of that was me,
Yeah.
or put it in a different, I wasn't really trusting God to provide. I needed to do it. I said I did, I trusted him, but I needed to do it myself.
Yes.
And so but I couldn't see it at the time. I could only see it looking back on it. And I don't beat myself up for it because,
Right.
we did provide for these nine children that are still around. Um, but I live that in front of them, and I can see myself in my kids because they'll take two or three different jobs, and they'll work
Wow.
themselves to a frazzle as well. So that kind of passed down from generation to generation. So I don't
Yes. So
know if
they,
that answers your question, but
it,
there's
it, it does. It does very much. So, um, one of the things that I had mentioned, I wanted us to talk about the respect between a husband and a wife. And scripture very clearly says, and I've asked in counseling for decades, many times I would have a couple sitting there and I would ask a wife, what do you think the greater needs of your husband are? And most of them would say, well, it's physical intimacy. That's his number one. And many times I've said, well, maybe, or maybe that's up toward the top, but have you ever thought about that deep need a man has to feel respected? And many wives have told me, no, I really have never thought about that or prayed that through. But Chris, I've known a number of men who are exceptionally successful. They could be city, state leaders, whoever it may be, who tell me that when they come home, the things their wife says to them makes them feel like they're a kid back in middle school. It so crushes their heart, and men then begin to have a change of heart and attitude toward their wives that they perceive to be disrespectful.
Right.
So that's an important issue in marriage. But one thing I wanted us to be able to talk about today is the fact that we are also, as men, called to lead, like you said a while ago, and provide and to show strength to our wives and be a covering. That will never be outdated. It will always be a biblical principle that I think we need to hold on to. But I'm really concerned about a lot of the men who are attending church who are so disrespectful to their wives. They want to be respected themselves, but they're not being respectful to their wives, saying things that are unimaginable, attitudes, criticism, and many Christian wives are living with a crushed heart, are feeling misunderstood at least. So I know that there were times, especially early on. Now, Vic and I have been married about 8 years, but Susie and I got married when we were very young. And before she passed, we were married over 42 years. And they were wonderful years. And we learned a lot about Christ's love, giving, sharing. I learned how selfish I was, you know. But at the same time, I also, because I'm studying every day, I'm preaching 3 times a week. I was doing radio 5 days a week back then and going overseas and blessed to be in some huge crusades. And she was working at a community college and loved helping the students, but she's raising 3 children and busy. So I began to feel like I'm hearing from the Lord more so than she was. Chris, I was not always the one getting the direction from the Lord. And I had to go back and apologize to her for that when I began to see that.
Yeah.
Now you're growing, you're out front, you're doing all these things, and your wife has this incredible ministry at home. But all men don't respect that the way I feel like they should.
Hmm.
And then I know that your family had a situation where you really had to hear your wife's heart, and it was a challenge to you. Would you tell us some about that story?
How much time you got?
I know, I know. It could take our entire time. It definitely could.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying about that, because about the respect thing, because it's been a progressive. I will look at her now. Just the other day, we have a friend who's, I think she's maybe turned 30 now.
Mhm.
So she's kind of in the age group of some of our kids. And my wife was sitting in our garage talking with our friend, a younger friend, and she's got 2 kids. And just kind of here's the situation that I'm in. And I watched my wife interact with her, and no judgment, no, there was things that were said. There was like, she could have lashed out, or why don't you do this? Or it's just, she's just listening. She's just taking it in. And I marveled at that.
Mhm.
And I do with her, with the kids too, because she's such a, She's like a sponge. She absorbs all this information, and then she's able to kind of direct them in the way that they should go, rather than, well, here's what you need to do, because that's what I'll do. Well, don't do that. You got to do
Yeah.
this. You got to make an investment over here. Buying a house. Da, 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 da. It's like,
Yes.
no, back up and just allow the person in front of you to tell their story, because a lot of times they just need to talk. They just need
Yes.
somebody to hear them, to see them and hear them. And I think
Yes.
that's what you're talking about with a husband and a wife.
Yes.
If When I see my wife, when I hear her heart, then I don't jump to conclusions about a look that she gave me or something that she said that was like, well, you shouldn't have done that to me. I think, no, listen a little closer here. She's
Mhm.
for you. She wants the best for you.
Yes.
So, in the situation that you were talking about, we moved from 1,800 square feet in Illinois to 5,500 square feet in Colorado. It was a palace, and we've got 8 kids, and then we had one after we moved. So we had 9 kids, and so everybody could spread out. But the problem was that the kids started getting sick pretty much after we moved in.
Mm.
And there was, one had an eye problem and one had an ear problem and another had digestive issues. And, there were just all of these different symptoms. And we had 2 dogs and a bird, and our pets started getting sick too. And
Mm.
but it didn't happen overnight. It was just this progressive thing.
Yes.
And so a friend down the street was talking to my wife one day and said, "Do you think it might be your house?" Now, let me back up. When we bought that house, we had actually bid on a different house that I thought was the perfect one, and that fell through. And so the realtor said, "Well, what about this house?" When my wife walked into that 5,500 square foot house, the first thing that she thought was, "It feels dark."
Mm.
That was her first gut feeling. It feels dark. And we've looked back at that. If
Mm.
I had listened to that, and if I had, just gone on down the road, we wouldn't have gone through what I'm going to describe to you.
Mm.
But we didn't. And the realtor said, "Well, what about this? And what if you do this? And et cetera, et cetera." And so she said, "Okay, all right, fine, let's go." And we moved in there. The kids started getting sick. And within 7 years, it had come to a head where, hospitalizations, there were things that were
Mm.
going on. And the friend who said, "Could it be your house?" was right, because there was a black mold growing behind the walls on 2 different bad shower installs.
Mm.
And it was a guy who had built this house himself, kind of piecemeal, and he did the shower installs.
Mm.
And so the water was leaking into the crevice between walls, between the bathroom and the bedroom, and it was kind of growing in there. But to look on the outside of it, you'd never see it. You couldn't tell it. And so
Mm.
after 2 remediations and thousands of dollars, and the kids still being sick, on a trip, I was in Chicago, and my wife called me, and she had been talking not only with the doctors, all the doctors that she had take the kids to would say, yeah, no, that the eye problem doesn't have anything to do with the ear problem. The ear problem doesn't have anything to do with the digestive problem. But the people that she was talking with, who gave her, the medical people as well as the
Mhm.
researchers, said, look, mold can do different things to different people because of the DNA makeup. And if we had gone to a veterinarian, the veterinarian would have said, your horse is sick and your cow is sick and your sheep is wobbling around. What's up with that barn of yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the common denominator? Yes.
Right. And none of the doctors, because they're specialists, and nothing against the doctors, but they're specialists,
Mhm.
it's like they don't see a connection here. But
Right.
she did. She was able to get online and to do a lot of the research even back then. It was easier today.
Hmm.
She was able to get on there and to do this research. So I'm in Chicago. She is in Colorado. I get a call from her before I get on the plane, and she says, "I think we need to leave the house."
Wow.
And so you're
Mm,
talking to the provider here. You're talking to the
yes.
person who is, this is 5,500 square feet. This is what we've invested. This is our biggest investment. We're going to die in that house. That's what
Yeah.
I think. All our kids are going to get married. They're going to walk down these stairs and go in the back.
Yeah.
That was the plan. And she said, "I think we need to leave the house." And so that whole plane ride, I'm rolling this over. What are the ramifications of this? What are the dominoes that fall if we walk away from that house? And I came to, I don't know how, other than, the spirit moving me.
Hmm.
I came to the place where I said, I was able to work it through to say, okay, if she's wrong, and we don't need to walk away from the house, then we'll laugh about this in a month or two and we'll move back in.
Yeah.
If she's right and we stay, I will live with that regret the rest of my life.
Mm.
And I
You're
thought,
processing that on the way home.
I processed that on the flight home from Chicago to Denver, got in the car, drove home, took off the suit I was wearing because I had been to a wedding and didn't have time to change. Took off the suit I was wearing, put it on the duvet or the bed in our master bedroom, and walked out with the clothes on my back across the street to the friends who said, "Hey, come over and you can stay with us." And we never slept again in that house.
I mean, you literally left the house then.
Right.
That was a
And
huge decision.
it was devastating. And I'll tell you what was even more devastating was, I got 9 kids. We had friends who took our little boys to the, to either Walmart or Kohl's, I can't remember which, and bought them clothes and threw the ones that they were wearing away. Because that's one of the things that mold does. Most people, when they leave, they take stuff with them, and
Mm.
it sticks. Mold is sticky to Carhartt shirts, like I like to wear.
Yeah.
You gotta start over again.
Did
So
y'all
all of the
literally
books.
leave everything?
Listen, Nathan, all of the books, and did I see your bookshelf back there? All the books that I had, signed copies of these things, these treasures that I had. It's like you got to walk away from that. How do you do
Oh
that?
my brother. Mm.
And and I would probably do it differently today. There are things in there that I probably would have kept and tried to clean, but at the time, it's like you got to make a clean break. So we
Hmm.
lived in a rental house, found a doctor here in Arizona, and that's the other thing. The financial weight of this is like the health insurance didn't cover any of this,
Oh
and we didn't
my,
know it at the
really?
time. It wasn't going to
Yes.
cover it. But it's like, what do you do if you find out this is the way to go? Do you
Yeah.
stay with the health care that you have that will pay for the thing that you don't need, or do you go?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we moved to Arizona for what we thought would be maybe 3 months, and that was in 2009, and we've been here ever since.
Okay.
Um,
Everybody doing well now?
yeah, and that's what most people want to say is, is everybody better? There are things that are residual things for our health that are still there. Like one of our kids had type 1 diabetes that came in the middle of all this. And nobody knows how type 1, triggers,
Hmm.
but we're pretty sure that it was that, crucible that triggered the thing that's never going to come back. He's insulin dependent for the rest of his life. There's an
Mm.
ear surgery that one of my sons had that he lost the hearing in that ear, and that's not going to come back
Mm.
probably. So there are effects, but yeah, we're probably healthier now than we were all the years that we lived in that house, in the 7 or 8 years that we lived there in
Wow.
Colorado. Um, yeah, go ahead.
What a story. And like you say, that's why you ask how much time we had. And we don't have much more time, but in this last couple of minutes, all that you and your wife must have had to work through in being respectful or disrespectful through that whole season. That's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And it stopped the two of you, and you're trying to protect the children. But there were a lot of dynamics, I'm sure, where the two of you had to make the choice. I will be respectful to her or him today. Now these medical bills and finances are getting tight, divide so many couples and become disrespectful or blaming one another over
Yeah.
those things.
Right.
So, just in a nutshell, how did y'all navigate that?
I when my wife and a few of the kids had already been down here, and I drove a rental truck from Colorado to the house that she found to, where we could live to rent for a couple of months. And I had nine, I think it was nine um, mattresses, that brand new mattresses that had been
Mhm.
basically given to us by friends in Colorado. The way that people gave to us
Wow.
was just incredible,
It's the kingdom of God, brother. Yes.
Yeah. And so we moved into this rental house. Guess what they had done just before we moved in? They sprayed for termites inside. They did this pesticide. So as soon as we moved in, the kids started having all these nosebleeds because of the blood-brain barrier that had been lessened by the mold up there.
Oh, my.
And we basically, in February, were sleeping outside because we couldn't sleep inside. We lost all of those mattresses. It's like, when I think
Wow.
about it, it's like a horror story that I'm.
Yes.
But again, we had people that were contributing to us there, but we had friends who live in Maine now who were sending us checks to be able to pay the some of the medical bills and to pay the hotel that we were staying in because we couldn't find a place to live. So,
Goodness.
having said all that, yeah, there were nights where I would lay awake and just think, how in the world are we going to do this? But through all of it, we were together. We
Mm,
were, it was like this is the mountain and we're going to hang on to each other and we're going to climb this mountain together.
okay.
It didn't tear us apart. And I don't know how it didn't, other than, and it wasn't just the love that we have for each other. I think it was the common goal of, we're going to get through this. We're going to make it through this. And the way that God was able to take that respect. There were times when she would take the kids to a medical place, and I would think, do we really need to do that? Do we really need those tests? All these blood
Yes.
tests, all this, that, and the other. Do we really need to do that? And it's like, you know what? She's on this. I'm going to trust her. Even if we didn't need to do that, looking back on it, all these years,
Hmm.
it's like at the time, this is what she needs and what the kids need. I'm going to honor that. I'm going to walk through this. We're going to make this. We're going to get through this together.
And
And
she felt respected and loved by you and heard. See, so many women are wanting to be heard by their husband, and she did. And I think that helped the two of you to walk through, yeah, an incredible story and come out on the other side and loving one another and loving your family. My
you know what
brother,
else helped there,
what's
Nathan?
that?
What else helped was when I'd actually been fired from my job in let go is a better
Yeah, yeah.
let go is better. And it took 6 months. They said, we're moving on. Can you stay 6 months? It's like, okay. So I went full-time freelance in July of 1999. You got 8 kids and you're going full-time freelance and leaving the healthcare behind and all this. And I was just had abject fear. It was
Oh
just
my
fright.
goodness.
How are we going to do it? I can't do that. How? And every step of the way, she said, "You're going to fly. This is going to be the best decision you've ever made. This is going, and so
Wow.
that what she instilled in me was, look,
Yes.
don't believe in yourself. This is going to work. You can always find another job. You can always go back to work.
Yeah.
here's an opportunity for you to do the thing that you've been made to do, in a sense. She was
Yes.
calling that out of me. And I was hooked on how much healthcare costs, and
Yes.
tied to that. And it's like she unhitched me from that post. I kind of
I
went on
love
her
it.
belief in me. And
Yes.
so this was my opportunity then to do the opposite, to come back around and to
I
say,
love it.
I'm going to put my trust in you and what you're following here. And she's been able to help a lot of different people through the years navigate these waters of, you see your child
Mhm.
suffering, and you see, and
Yeah.
I've been able to help the husband who is in the same situation, who is tied to, yeah, but that house is our biggest investment. How are we going to do this? And to be able to say, look, you're never going to regret loving your family more, loving the people more than the
Yes.
property.
Yes. Yes.
So that's in a
Wow.
nutshell what happened.
Chris, what a story. And I think what a wonderful way to kind of close the program here in what it meant to you as a man when your wife believed in you.
Bingo.
And you began to soar, brother. You began to soar and you're still doing it.
Uh,
So God bless.
Thank you for what you do, Nathan. Thank you for the hope that you give to the people who are in the middle of the struggle,
Yeah. Yes. It's just an amazing story, but a great encouragement for husbands and wives to encourage one another and to believe in them.
Bingo.
Yes. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and spending some time with us today.
I loved it. I'd give you a hug if I was there.
Yeah, I would too, brother. I would too. God bless you. You
God
mean the
bless
world
you.
to us. You really do.
Thank you.
Continue blessings to you. Thank you.
You as well.